remaining 33% are conditional upon international support. So on a domestic scale, resources may be mobilized mainly through public finance or private investments. We've made some encouraging developments to enhance the volume of resources that can be raised domestically. For instance, Pakistan has ventured into green capital markets, issuing green bonds and sukuks. Similarly, under IMF's Resilience and Sustainability Facility, the government has also imposed multiple levies, most notably the petroleum levy, the revenue from which could be recycled to support energy transition activities. Additionally, Pakistan's green taxonomy has recently been published to sort of guide financial institutions in identifying and categorizing environmentally sustainable investments. And this also aims at increasing private sector participation in financing the energy transition. On the international side, Pakistan relies heavily on multilateral development banks and bilateral donors, such as the World Bank, ADB, GCF, or individual countries like Germany, Japan, or China. More recently, philanthropic and blended finance initiatives have also begun exploring partnerships with Pakistan, but they're still in like a nascent stage. But when we look towards mobilizing these resources, we're faced by several financial or institutional bottlenecks. The clearest of these bottlenecks is perhaps that domestic resources are quite limited. Private banks remain risk averse, and fiscal constraints of the government leave limited space for direct public investment. Our debt servicing obligations already consume about 60% of government expenditure. Development spending has continuously been squeezed to sort of accommodate other priorities, and our ability to raise concessional finance is limited by debt sustainability concerns, making it very difficult for the public sector to fund the energy transition alone. At the same time, responsibilities for the energy transition and climate finance are spread across multiple ministries and agencies, such as the Ministry of Climate Change, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, or Planning Commission. Each of these does play an important role, but there is no overarching coordination framework to bring them together. So this fragmentation weakens both efficiency and credibility. And when investors see this, their confidence in our market fell. Moving on, we are faced with similar issues when it comes to international finance mobilization. So international finance still flows through project by project modalities, each governed by its own approval, procurement, and reporting procedures. This fragmented approach leads to multiple issues such as the duplication of effort, delayed implementation, and limited visibility of cumulative impact. But at the same time, a major chunk of external climate finance is loan-based, and often driven by donor priorities rather than domestic needs and national policies, while accessing truly concessional or grant-based finance, for example, through the GCF, remains slow and administratively heavy, requiring multiple layers of validation, which often end up reducing the effectiveness of the mechanism itself in driving meaningful impact. Another issue is perhaps that private international investment still remains low and is constrained by mainly by perceived country risk and currency volatility, and let's say the absence of clear de-risking tools, such as guarantees or hedging facilities. So when we look at all the bottlenecks from a broader angle, we can see that Pakistan's shortcomings in mobilizing effective finance for its energy transition are not entirely related to the availability of finance, but rather somewhat equally to how it flows. So while resources do exist, they're scattered across institutions with no single mechanism to align them under one national vision or strategy. So this is where a country platform becomes crucial. It offers precisely the architecture that we lack. As we already heard in Obaid's initial remarks or Dr. Khalid's, that country platforms are country-led, multi-stakeholder coordination mechanisms that align international support with domestic priorities through a unified investment framework. They're not new institutions, but rather structured ecosystems bringing together governments, development partners, private investors, and civil society under a single umbrella. In essence, they replace project by project chaos with a country-led programmatic model. So, for Pakistan's energy transition, a country platform could serve a wide range of purposes. It could ensure proper alignment between donors and the projects they fund in such a way that every project and domestic initiative contributes to shared national priorities. Then it could enable financial aggregation, bringing together concessional loans, private capital, philanthropic capital, and public funds in a single investment pipeline. It could strengthen transparency and accountability through a unified monitoring, reporting, and verification system, giving investors greater confidence and also increasing private sector engagement. It could also, to in a way, go as far as embedding just transition principles within energy projects and finance, ensuring that the shift to clean energy creates opportunities for workers and communities rather than leaving them behind. So, in order to materialize the benefits associated with country platforms and leverage them to advance Pakistan's energy transition, our policy paper identifies 8 core interlinked recommendations. The first and let's say, most fundamental step is getting the governance right. So Pakistan's energy and climate governance is currently scattered across ministries, each doing important work, but often in silos, as I think Dr. Khalid explained extensively. The country platform model depends on changing this dynamic. So the platform must be anchored in a strong political leadership, ideally under the Prime Minister's office or a cabinet level steering committee with joint operational responsibility shared by key ministries such as finance, energy, or even the planning commission. The second recommendation is that Pakistan must consolidate fragmented financial flows into a single coherent framework. So today, climate finance comes in through multiple windows, be they grants, loans, projects, or bilateral programs, and each of these has its own reporting rules and timeframes. A country platform would integrate these streams into a unified financing architecture, so built around a central vehicle, which ideally could be the long delayed Pakistan Climate Change Fund. This fund could serve as a coordination hub under one national investment framework rather than merely as a pool of money. In the longer term, this structure can be complemented by innovative financial instruments such as green bonds, sustainability linked loans, or debt for climate swaps to expand fiscal space and sort of attract international investment. The third recommendation, it addresses one of Pakistan's most persistent challenges, which is shortage of finance-ready projects. So the country platform should include a project preparation facility as well, which would be a dedicated mechanism that helps identify, design, and structure projects at early stages and ensure that they align with the country's NDCs. This would also finance feasibility studies, business models, environmental and social assessments, and risk analyses, so that by the time a project reaches a financier, it is ready for investment. The fourth recommendation would be to build institutional and technical capacity. So Pakistan's public institutions, from ministries to provincial departments, do require technical and financial capacity to manage complex multi-stakeholder investments. The country platform should therefore include a capacity development component supported by international partners to strengthen competencies in various areas, including project finance and structuring, climate risk and carbon accounting, monitoring and evaluation, and policy and regulatory design. Plus, training programs, South-South cooperation, and embedded technical experts can also help accelerate this learning curve. Our fifth recommendation centers around people. So, ensuring that Pakistan's energy transition is not only green, but also just and equitable. Energy transitions inevitably marginalize certain factions within the system. These could be low-income households who cannot afford new technologies, or workers from fossil fuel-based sectors who risk losing employment once these fuels are phased out. So it is crucial to ensure representation from provinces, labor unions, women's organizations, SMEs, academia, basically all vulnerable communities in the country platform's governance structure, while also making social impact assessments and gender sensitive design mandatory for all country platform projects, and integrating social protection and skills development measures for affected workers and communities, potentially with the help of philanthropic finance, as Dr. Khalid mentioned earlier. Moving on, the country platform should serve as a central coordination hub that aligns all external support under a common national framework. So this would entail organizing regular joint dialogues between the steering committee, development partners, and private financiers, encouraging co-financing arrangements rather than isolated donor projects, and embedding shared standards for monitoring and environmental safeguards across all programs. In addition to this, in order to attract large-scale investment, Pakistan may demonstrate policy stability. Actually, it must demonstrate policy stability, transparency, and reform continuity. This can be ensured by institutionalizing cross-ministerial coordination on transition policies to reduce mixed signals to investors, enacting predictable frameworks for tariff setting, subsidy rationalization, and carbon pricing, strengthening energy market governance and regulatory autonomy, and embedding major reforms in legislation rather than administrative orders to safeguard them from political turnover. And for our final recommendation, we propose the establishment of a robust monitoring, evaluation, and learning system built on digital data infrastructure to track the flow of climate finance from source to impact, monitor emissions reductions and socioeconomic co-benefits, evaluate progress through independent audits, and publish results through open access dashboards for full transparency. The goal here would basically be to actually for us to understand if the country platform is achieving its objective or not. Um, so translating these recommendations into action requires a phased and programmatic approach. So our policy paper proposes a three-stage roadmap that builds momentum step by step. In the first phase, which should last about a year or two, the focus should be on establishing institutional credibility and ownership. This includes securing cabinet level endorsement, forming a high level steering committee under the prime minister or another key ministry, and setting up a technical secretariat supported by thematic working groups. A national diagnostic study should simultaneously identify transition priorities, investment needs, and policy bottlenecks. So during this phase, the Pakistan Climate Change Fund can also be operationalized as the central financing vehicle, while consultations may be launched with development partners, the private sector, and provincial stakeholders to ensure broad-based participation and alignment. So the idea is basically to set the stage for future operationalization. And the second phase, which should last another year or two, should also move from structure to implementation. So this should take care of the operationalization part. So here the country platform should develop a credible pipeline of bankable projects through a project preparation facility, prioritize high impact areas such as distributed renewables, grid upgrades, and industrial decarbonization, and also begin deploying blended finance instruments like green or transition bonds. Parallel efforts should focus on building technical capacity across ministries and financial institutions, introducing targeted energy and fiscal reforms, and fostering close coordination with donors and investors through regular investment roundtables and co-financing arrangements. So by the end of this phase, the country platform should demonstrate early successes. So there should be visible projects, there should be finance being mobilized, and there should be measurable progress toward emission reductions and energy security goals. In the third and final phase, the objective would be to institutionalize institutionalize and scale the platform. This would involve expanding partnerships with multilateral and private financiers, empowering provincial governments to manage subnational investment windows, embedding just transition and reskilling programs, and enacting legislation that formally sort of integrates the country platform into national climate and energy frameworks. So transparent monitoring and evaluation system, including, say, a public dashboard tracking financial flows, emissions, and social impacts, should also exist here, like by this time, to ensure accountability and continuous learning. So basically, if put together and pursued with consistency and political commitment, this three-phased approach should allow the country platform to evolve into the central mechanism through which Pakistan coordinates its energy transition, or mobilizes large-scale finance and delivers an equitable, resilient, and credible low-carbon future, which also aligns with its NDC priorities. So I think I'll just stop here, and I'd also like to invite you to read our full report, which will be available soon at the SDPI website. It discusses most of what I talked about today, but in a lot more detail. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nisma, for the detailed and insightful presentation. It helps us understand how the country platform model can be contextualized for Pakistan, drawing on both stakeholder consultation and global experiences. I would really like, before moving towards a Q&A session, if Ubaid have any comments on, like further comments?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sarah. I think Nisma has pretty much summed up the reports. But yeah, before anything else, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hands, type them in the chat box. In the next few minutes, we'll be able to answer that. Just in the meanwhile, yeah. So I mean, just like Nisma mentioned, you can find a lot more numbers, a lot more details, a lot more subsectoral working within the document that we have developed, and it would be available online by hopefully the 7th of November. We'll be launching it upcoming flagship sustainable development conference. So yeah, I mean, again, really looking forward. You can find a lot of more insights within the main document as well. And just to kind of, it's one thing that Pakistan is also at COP30 planning to launch its climate prosperity plan, which will also kind of recommend developing a country platform for the country. So yeah, again, CPI and the Climate Vulnerability Forum and V20 finance ministers, they're also going to be doing some of the relevant dialogues recently. So feel free to join them as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hands, and we'll be more than happy to kind of facilitate the discussion. I think one point that I have been seeing coming from Maheen is, I mean, country platforms is more of like a strategic roadmap and a partnership that kind of shows how this coordination can actually work. So, I mean, not something kind of a platform that can kind of provides you a single window facility where you don't have to kind of go. I mean, the internal coordination mechanism within the country would pretty much remain the same. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to mention. But yes, Sarah, this was just one pointer that I wanted to mention. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see if anyone has any question. I guess you have already answered and addressed the question that Maheen asked. So yeah, with this, thank you, Ved, and thank you once again to all the speakers, participants, and colleagues for joining us today. On behalf of SDPI and NCIT again, I truly appreciate your time and engagement in today's important conversation. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in our future engagements and events. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye.